And I guess that's why they call it the Jews. So, hello again. We're discussing now, today I'm going to talk about the rigged election again, the extent of the scale of it, and based on it's kind of the lid being blown off this thing by the Trump attorney, Sidney Powell, who basically it shows how it's corrupted, describes it in the detailed sort of way on her latest interviews. It's quite comical. I mean, this whole thing is just it should be a comedy film with Peter Sellers or something, in the old days, where his henchmen are trying to rig this thing using every power at their disposal, and it keeps backfiring it to the point where they have to be so obvious. And the graph does this little hurdle. It makes this little hurdle, and Trump was ahead the whole time, but then this graph suddenly makes this incredible hurdle to storm the elections at the end of the day and get a landslide of their own, blue wave. Joe Biden himself was saying that we're going to go long on this one. It's like the American football, You picture this like throwing this Hail Mary pass and the movie imagery, and the guy catching this impossible pass, dodging all the defenders at the last dying seconds of the game. We're going to go long on this one. He seems to be remarkably prophetic, much like Bill Gates and others of the Cabal, who predicts, diseases 5 years in advance and second waves months into the thing that never was a first wave. But anyway, the rigged Dominion system, which was the software used in the elections, is just an absolute farce. Basically, it became alarm stakes for them because the Trump election, they broke the algorithm of this rigged system. I mean, can you just see the comedy in this? So at 3 a.m., obviously, they had to shut it down and backfill the system with, stuffed kind of votes, I suppose, drag and drop type of activities and, ballots that were 100% for Biden. At 3 a.m. in the morning across all these states and odd hours of the morning, backfilling it with fake ballots and all sorts of other ultra software was already corrupt, but it didn't work. It wasn't, they broke the algorithm. So they came into the casino and basically, we won the lottery and that wasn't allowed. So they had to rig it to the point where it's absurd. The people that don't see the absurdity of that is they need to be helped with some kind of logic. They need a little logic software download in their brains themselves. The machines were turned off in key states. This Dominion system, by the way, could have been running in all the states, which brings my little prophetic idea that actually, did Trump really even lose somewhere like California? Probably, we don't know, but now it's plausible. If this software is run across the entire system and they really need to fight this thing, in order, fight first the already rigged software system, then the mail-in ballots, and so on and so on. They can't just fight one aspect of it. They actually have to go for all of it. You can't just accept one little lie and allow a whole lot of others to pass, because that's how it works. The forces of the supernatural forces work that way somehow. It's much like anybody giving credence to the coronavirus way back months ago should have been saying no, because We see that this is going to enable these mail-in ballots. That's not acceptable. So they accepted a little lie, and now they've got massive lies to deal with and massive problems and removals of freedoms, which is happening now. It's done. Like in the UK, for example, where we are under lockdown again, and work is extremely scarce in certain industries, and many of them are completely shut down. I know, which is a whole nother story anyway. But it's just, I had to get onto this live just to keep the momentum going. Everybody needs to keep the momentum going in the States, particularly. It's not like we can't be, lazy like we have been in the past. People have to get rolling mass action, basically. They have the numbers. A lot of this Antifa and stuff is jumped up, puffed up. There's nowhere near as many people as they think compared to good, ordinary, loyal, family-oriented people, in America. So it does bring my point about California, for example, with Mexican immigrants. Why would they particularly be voting for this? Maybe 10 years ago, 15, 20, 30 years ago, they would be Democrats. But I mean, basically, they're not suicidal. Even those people have certain values. They're not down for this Globohomo Gaytheism, Cabal, the GGC, Globo Gaytheist Cabal, GGC, which is, basically the beast system. And it's colossal. Because when you look at the fact that they uncover all these things, they take it through the court systems and they're finding, oh, but hang on, there's just more cabal in the court system. There's totally cabal in the media, totally in all of it, like not even one single source is GGC, Global Gaytheist Cabal. So the GGC has been discovered in everything, and I can attest to that in the UK too. And where they're even taking issues to the courts about the constitutionality of lockdowns and the contravention of Magna Carta, and common law, and it's flagrant stuff. It's not even. It's beyond Banana Republic. It's beyond North Korea. This is in the UK. This is staggering stuff. And all they're finding with these people going via legal channels and so on, all they're finding is just more GGC. It's incredible, the scale of this. I mean, I'm pretty convinced that the police, these thousands and thousands of police that almost, number as much as the protesters themselves in the UK, and 4 of these protests that I've attended, they're all possibly they've been pincushioned with vaccines that gave them a mini frontal lobotomy because they don't seem to have a single shred of right or wrong in their minds, in their brains. When you discuss this, and you try and persuade them that what they're doing is extremely unlawful, whether it's a Corona Act or a Corona laws or whatever this is. It cannot supersede the 10 commandments. They basically enforcing this is perjury. It's, in a sense, it's theft because they stop people from doing their rightful work. It's even murder. So essentially, it's contravening the 10 commandments, which is the law. There's like Corona Act is superseded all of those things. Anybody makes a complaint, or even after they've been dragged to the police station, and anybody takes them to task, it just seems to vanish. It just becomes nothing because they've just discovered this colossal scale of this fucking GGC, which is in everything. The I cannot imagine the level of recruitment they must have been doing behind my back, because I certainly never been approached to be part of this cabal. But yeah, it's ironclad. It's absolutely ironclad. Yeah, but anyway, I mean, people's on the ground here in the UK, I'll say they brainwashed, also lobotomized, possibly from the flu jab. And I mean this in all sincerity, because you'd have to be lobotomized to even remotely think this stuff is acceptable, to lock people down, to keep them in their homes, to tell them this, what they can do and cannot do. And so anyway, I went into the shop the other day, Greg's, which is a big pie and coffee shop. So it kind of suits my healthy diet. Anyway, I was standing there and I noticed one lady at the front of the queue didn't have a mask. I thought, great. The difference between, I can't discern the difference between scorn or love or like or whatever, friendliness. So anyway, so this woman reprimanded us, and I said, well, the other lady in front said, oh, I forgot mine. Oh, sorry. I said, well, I refuse to wear one. He said, oh, but we're getting fines, and the officer was in here moments ago or a while ago telling us that we will be fined. So I said, well, you tell that officer to go to hell. I'm not putting on a mask. I don't, where does this end? This is never going to end. It's been months now. This 8 months, almost the whole year of our lives just wrecked. And I was saying this in front of everybody. This big hulking guy behind me with the mask on, and he just kept quiet. It's incredible. The pure fucking lack of balls. These big men that are listening to this crap. And I glared at him, and he just didn't even look at me. Not that I could ever probably take him on physically because he was a big lad, but it just, I've got contempt for this suicidal nature of people. Anyway, so I then said also in front of everybody, I said, so now and then she's just not engaging me at all, not listening, and she's kind of trying to just dismiss me, and she's going to let me buy this time, but next time I must wear the comply, whatever. And I kept on talking. I said, well, what if they told you all that you must stick a cork up your bum? Is everybody going to do that too? No answers. Everybody just dead quiet. Not even a laugh or like, it's kind of funny, or like an outrage, or just this silence. It's incredible. And I could tell thousands of stories, thousands in these 8 months that I've had an experience, describing just the levels of insanity that's transpiring in people and in the institutions as well. And this is the thing, is that these people we have evil government, but we also have evil people, because this complicit acceptance of this is not acceptable. So yeah, that's the kind of theme going forward here, which seems to just be relentless. It's like all these protests, all these movements, that hasn't made a dent. It seems to me sometimes. Perhaps that's what they wanted to appear like. Just going back to Brackenfell, there again is Jack Marxist, the EFF youth leader, and just his comment about the WhatsApp neighborhood watches, and this is just typical of exactly what the cabal despise, is that people have taken their own safety and security and then sorted it out. And just the sheer audacity of these guys, that they come and they say that on a public platform, because that's what's really bothering them. Actually, that was his key point, was the WhatsApp groups and the neighborhood watches. Let me tell you now, that's his key point there, and that's what they're going at, because they've identified a problem that emasculates men once again. Because now they have to have other men come to help them save their wives and their daughters, and they have to have other men on speed dial, because you are not capable of doing this, you horrible anti-gaytheist. So yeah, they don't want men, they want, gaytheists basically, and sodomites. Totally cuckolding and then having little other men on speed dial to come and pull them out of trouble. So it's just interesting to see that that's what he was highlighting. Was almost bombing with his statement, and it got a lot of traction because it would have gone through a lot of social media and as well as the mainstream media, since they gave him a platform, over and above actual other EFF people. It's also curious as to how this White as Snow character walked through, the most genocidal political group possibly on the planet, and openly genocidal. We know there's actually one that's more genocidal than them, but they're not as mouthed, and they do it through, billions and trillions of dollars in rands and forced immigrations, forced artificial inseminations of third world nations, and so on. But the scale of this GGC system, Globohomo, Gaytheist, Cabal, GGC, it seems to have no end. I'm constantly kind of amazed. I mean, almost like watching a real life, horror/thriller. I don't know, but it's this bland, banal terror, not really like excitement or anything like that you would expect in a horror movie. But it's quite astounding the levels of control that they have with every single institution. No matter how you approach, where you come from, what angle, how many points you have that are on your side of truth and basic law, 10 commandments, you name it. It's all just been absolutely eradicated. But yeah, we got to just not accept it. I mean, what Trump should do, what they should do in America is because they're going to inaugurate this guy Biden. But then why don't we just have a little inauguration party for Trump and just keep ignoring them the way that the mainstream media is ignoring us? We just ignore them and we just don't stop. You cannot give up, because the complicity in itself is evil. They cannot give up to this flagrant lie, which in my opinion is because they've been fucking kids and murdering them. And that's basically what it is. James Elephantis Rothschild and his, all their little nieces and nephews of those big families, and they're getting old now, in their 30s and so on. And they don't want to face justice. It's terrifying. They will not face justice. You can bank on that. They will take everything down with them rather than face what's coming to them. And, just disseminating information is all that I have the power to do at this point. All that anybody seems to be able to do at this point, because nobody's stopped them. And it has to be done, and it has to be recognized that this is why this just absolute insanity. I mean, what's going to be next? Are they just going to shut down the entire global grid of electricity and telecommunications if they could see that we're still striving towards justice? at what point are they ever going to stop? And if we keep allowing this to go on, there's no point that they stop. None. They got nothing to lose. Because they are guilty of those extreme conspiracy theories that nutcases like me are coming up with. And that's what you have to see it through that lens of why this extreme, unreasonable, extreme, dangerous actions are being taken, and there's just no stopping it, whichever angle you approach this thing at. It's dire. And we have to fight it, even though they seem to. The trend that I've noticed in the protest movement here is we kind of in a dialogue situation, whereas as soon as we have a protest, then they've arrested one of the protesters, the leaders or something, and £10,000 fine. And the very next day, there's more announcements made by Boris Johnson and his cohorts about more extreme measures being taken. So they double down. They see resistance and they double down. This is not a coincidence. This is happening it's a fight. It's an absolute resistance. And to me, the man of lawlessness is being revealed. The men of lawlessness. I don't think it's one man. And we can see that there's a financial, and they have an aspect of control. And it seems to have no limits. It's got no morals. It doesn't give a shit how many people it hurts and destroys. And it doesn't give a shit how unreasonable it is. And scores of people have mirrored those sentiments out there. You're just not allowed to stand for truth. You're just not allowed to. And we got to use weapons of mockery as well. Just throw it back in their face. Like I was saying to them in the shops, all those people standing around accepting this bullshit. Like, are you going to let them legislate that you have to wear a cork up your bum? And I was talking directly to some ladies as well. Ladies don't like people telling them what's going to go up their bum. But this is dire. This is the point where, we have to be strong in this resistance. And mockery is a good thing as well. You'll never underestimate the power of that. Kind of reminds me of, Elijah mocking the priests and the priestesses when they were slashing themselves and to bring down fire from heaven to prove whose God was true. And that's something we've also got to remember. And no matter how many children they've sacrificed, in debaucheries and in dark underground parties of theirs or whatever they've been up to, the James Alephantises of the world. And there's overwhelming evidence of this stuff. Don't stop just dismissing it. This is what you're up against. But basically, their God has no power in that sense. The power is the actual them, the physical persons that are stopping us from working. Why would they do that if they had supernatural powers? There is no supernatural powers for them. None. Zilch. There's only your complicit acquiescence to what's going on. That's their power. So anyway, again, I keep making these things in vain, but hopefully it ignites the right fuse somewhere. And I hope this finds you well. And keep up the fight, or start fighting.